photography. Okay, so let me take up some of the quick queries which have come in. Okay, so Parth asking how is the combination of 80D and Sigma 15600? Okay, now talking about some of the well-known brands and the cameras, right? So my recommendation is the Tamron 15600 G2 is an amazing lens. Okay, so any of you into wildlife photography, bird photography you want to get into, then the Tamron 15600 G2 is an amazing lens, excellent performance, sharpness, everything. I mean, like it's real value for money what you pay for. And that combined for with any of your body, doesn't matter Canon 80D, 90D or the Nikon interlevel, any of those things, it will work. And especially Nikon users, the 200, 500 also is equally good. So if you're more into wildlife photography and less of bird photography, then go ahead with the Nikon 200, 500. Otherwise, the Tamron 15600 is definitely an excellent lens for your use. Okay. So Pridev, yes, between Tamron 15600 and the Canon 100-400, see, when we talk about quality and sharpness, the Canon IS2 100-400 IS2 beats the Tamron or any of the lenses by a very, very far large margin. Because if you look at the MTF chart of it, it's very, very good. That reminds me now in the lens. So if you want to look at the sharpness, the quality of the lens, then you can click on any of the lens here. Okay, so the 200, 600, if you click on the lenses when you're looking at my database, so here I have also shared the MTF chart. So MTF chart will let you know about the quality of the lens, how sharp the lens is, then even both the resolution, sharpness, and also the contrast, colors. So it is going to give you all those details with just looking at the graph of that. So if you see like 0 to 100%, the x-axis, that is more to do with your sharpness, quality. And then the y-axis 0 to 20, what you have, right? So that is the sharpness of the image from the center of the frame to the edges. And then there are multiple graphs. One is at wide open. So if it is a f2.8 lens, so what is the sharpness at f2.8? And then what is the sharpness at f8? So it gives you like multiple data from this. But from simple straight point or straight forward answer, if I had to give you, higher this graph is, the better the lens performance and the sharpness, colors, contrast, everything is. So make sure the graph actually, like the graph what you see has to be completely at the top. So 100% is very, very rare to have it, because like 100% of light never enters the lens. Some amount of light gets reflected from the glass element in the front. So 100% sharpness is very tough because of the build quality. But if you see like the MTF chart still helps you understand as to like what lens you will have to go for. Okay. So Pridev, hopefully that answers your question. Now again, Shanti, the question of mirror or mirrorless, that's a very, very big debate. Now again, let me be very honest here, even though I'm a Sony brand ambassador, but when it comes to equipment, of course, I fully vouch for the Sony mirrorless, the technology in that, and also the lens quality, like it's top notch. I have seen across the spectrum all the different equipment, but I vouch for Sony, just not because I'm their ambassador, but I trust the overall sharpness, quality, the performance, it's top notch, I'll tell you. And of course, that is the reason I shifted from a different brand to Sony. Now that said, this whole debate between mirror and mirrorless, if you ask me, I'll be very honest with you, even the mirrorless or even the DSLR, okay, even the entry-level DSLR, Nikon say D500 or the Canon D90, D80, all of them are extremely good, depending on how exactly you want to use it. Because the technology, the high-end equipment, technology, autofocusing, all those comes into picture in extreme low light situation, your ISO performance, your autofocusing comes into picture, then even, of course, the quality. So all that at a very high-end equipment in these corner cases, it makes a huge difference. Otherwise, you're someone who goes into the safari, the tiger or any animal is sitting, click, 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 you do. Honestly, for that, any equipment will do. You don't have to worry about mirror or mirrorless. Okay. And the more you understand about the mirrorless technology, the features, what it provides, and then even the features of those individual camera, then we can talk more in depth about within that mirrorless beat between the three brands. which one is good and why. So that is where a lot of in-depth analysis comes into picture. And Satvik, my advice, okay, I think I missed Shashwat's question. Nikon 200, 500, as I said, absolutely brilliant equipment. Okay, Sony A7 III and the 2870, again, A7 III is good, but there are rumors that the A7 IV is going to come up. Okay, even though I'm a Sony brand ambassador, I do not get to know any inside information. Okay, they don't release it to me, they don't tell me, I don't get to know. My guess is as good as yours, but if you search the internet, A7 IV probably like will be announced very soon as per the rumors. Okay, so Sony Alpha Rumors website is there. You go there and check, you'll get all the information. So instead of A7 III, just hold on for the A7 IV, which is coming up. And Satvik, A6100, my recommendation is go with anything above A6500. Okay, so that is where all the latest technology will be there. Type the name, Sovan, I missed, type which name. I think I missed your full question over there when you say, please type the name. I don't understand what you're asking me. So please do again ask, I should be able to respond. So Amol, yes, again, the 7200, if you ask me, 7200 is one of my favorite lenses. 7200 f2.8 for wildlife is one of my favorite lenses, mainly again for low light photography and also the perspective what you can get. A little bit of zoom also you can get at 200 mm when the subjects are quite close. And apart from that, even the kind of wider perspective, even if the subject is close. So for that, again, the 7200 is an amazing lens. And Prashant, no, I would not advise to change lens in the field, be it for DSLR or mirrorless. Never change it in the field. And again, APS-C and full frame, that's again an individual choice. I'm a person who always goes for the full frame. And yes, the Tamron 5600 fits on the 1DX Mark II, of course, as long as the Tamron is a Canon mount, so you can fit it on the 1DX Mark III shaker. Okay, so Rakesh, I already answered that. Instead of 150-600 Sigma, my recommendation is Tamron 150-600 G2. Okay, and also like other questions coming in, is this camera good? Is the camera good? As I said, there is nothing called as a bad camera. So every camera, there's a purpose for that. So based on your budget, please go ahead and buy that with the lens. And most important thing is obviously like your understanding about photography, the concepts, which I'll explain once we move deeper into the session. Okay. And currently, like outside of what I'm currently telling, I will not be answering any other questions. Okay, and again, what lens, what camera? So please go ahead, check that particular lens, particular website. I'm just scrolling through the questions because there are a lot of repeat questions which I want to skip. Okay. And no, Lakshmikant, the shutter sound does not disturb the wildlife a lot. Okay. 6600, it's not a full frame, it's a crop sensor. Cool. So this is what I had to talk about the equipment. So let's move into the next session. So let me stop sharing this. And I will be, where is the document? Yes, and I will be answering as many questions as possible. Okay, high megapixel doesn't play a major role. It all depends on like what you want to use your camera for. So a lot of that comes into picture. Okay. Okay, so I'll just, as I said, I'm going to answer only about the equipment. We are talking about that. So Sigma 100-400 is definitely, it's a mediocre, decent lens for even Sony as well. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead with the next section. Okay, there you are. Cool. So that was about equipment, and moving forward. Now this is again a very, very important one. Today is October 2nd. Of course, even Gandhi Jayanti, and all the various parks have opened up. So all over India, the core zones of all the national parks, tiger reserves have opened up. So let me quickly take you through, like from now, because the season starts for wildlife photography starting October till May, June. So till June end, that is a core season for wildlife photography across a lot of national parks. Of course, here in Karnataka, we are open throughout the year. We don't close at all. So that way, like you can plan your trip in Karnataka any time of the year. But for the rest of India, let me help you as to like, depending on what you want to shoot, which parks are really, really good. So let me go through that first. Now, when it comes to tiger photography, the most important one for everyone. So in India, if you see, like these are some of the main destinations for tiger photography. Ranthambore National Park, which is the number one in India or across the world when it comes to like shooting amazing images of tigers. Because the tigers there are very used to the vehicles, and Ranthambore habitat, if you see, is quite open, and the vehicles can go in a lot of different directions to get you the right position. And the tigers, they don't just disappear, they don't run away into the bushes. So that is one of the reasons why it is the most popular park and also very difficult to get the permits. And again, the overall rules, guidelines are quite tough over there and sometimes relaxed. Okay. And the next one for me is again Bandhavgarh Tiger Reserve, again because of the amazing tiger sightings. But unlike Ranthambore, so Ranthambore, if you go, so Ranthambore is excellent not just for tiger photography, but any kind of wildlife photography, because the kind of species what you get in Ranthambore is abundant, right from your nilgai to samba deer to spotted deer to langus, a lot of peacocks. So all these things are abundant, and like they give you good opportunity to even learn your wildlife photography from them. Okay, so they don't run away, as I said. So that is one major advantage of Ranthambore Tiger Reserve. That said, so when I talk about Bandhavgarh, one of the things with Bandhavgarh is like it is tigers or nothing, because that is how the habitat and even general wildlife in Bandhavgarh is like. So if you're going in search of the tiger, if you don't find tigers, chances are your overall safari will be very flat. You will not get come across a lot of wildlife. Of course, spotted deers, nilgai, some of them you will definitely get. But from a photography opportunity point of view, the habitat, especially the Magdi and the Kitauli, a lot of bamboo shoots over there, like bamboo habitat, and very difficult to create some amazing compositions. So that is one challenge you face. Next, coming to Corbett. So Corbett, again, one of my favorite landscapes for wildlife photography in general. And the best season is like May, June. April, May, June is the best season. And talking about season, yes, currently across these parks. So Corbett, November 15th, it opens. So we still don't know how Corbett is. But if you look at the Rascana, I've still not got news from there. But Tadoba, if you see again for tiger photography, I don't know how many of you saw day one. So yesterday, day one, they've seen 19 different tigers. I think is it 19 or 17, one of them. Okay. So day one, they've seen 17 to 19 different tigers and 7 leopards. So that has been the sighting in Tadoba. Of course, this is spread across the core area as well as the buffer area. So don't expect that you go to Tadoba and you can just go around and start seeing tigers everywhere. That will not happen. So it is across Tadoba between the core and the buffer. So that is the number of sightings what they have seen yesterday, day one. And for us, thanks for that. Even Pench did well on first day. So I haven't checked online about Pench, but yes, Ranthambore also was quite good. Bandhavgarh also quite good with the number of sightings, everything happening. So I think across all the parks, the sightings are really good. Now, the other thing which you have to consider is like in each of these parks, there are a lot of cups as well. At least I'm aware of like Ranthambore, Bandhavgarh, even Tadoba. All these places, there are a lot of cups. In fact, last month I was in Satpura Tiger Reserve. And here I have not included Satpura because I'm yet to explore Satpura to the fullest to understand about its habitat, about the sightings over there. But Satpura, I was talking to the field director and he was mentioning on the, not the Persapani, which is the other side, to Churna side. So on the Churna side, there are at least 4 different tigers with minimum 3 to 4 cubs each. And sure, like we should be able to get some amazing sightings of them. So that is Satpura. So this is where as a wildlife photographer, so you need to like study each of the parks. So there are a lot of Facebook groups across, there are a lot of groups in Facebook for all these parks, and you can just sign up for any of them and you will get up-to-date sightings about from each of the parks. So that way, like you can plan your visit. So for the next 6 months, if you want to visit any of the tiger reserves, so these are all the different ones. And then as I said about the sightings, do join the Facebook group where you will get a lot of information. Okay. So what is core area and buffer area? So Swami, from a wildlife point of view, from a sanctuary point of view, what happens is, like as the name says, core. Core is the main area within the park. Okay. And then if, like all the forests across India are surrounded by villages, human habitat, cultivation, a lot of that happens. So the immediate forest adjoining these villages or even say human habitation, right? So the forests which are attached to that, so that area, that part is what we call as the buffer. And then the one within that is the core area. So that is where the differentiation of the core and the buffer happens. So generally, like core area, no settlement is allowed. Buffer area and the fringes of the buffer, so there will be a lot of human settlement. Okay, so that is the high level definition of the difference between core and buffer. And December for Ranthambore, I mean, like from now, I mean, the next 6 months, any of these parks, Kanha, Tadoba, Bandhavgarh, Ranthambore, all these parks will rock. As I said, because there are a lot of cups, which means the sighting will be amazing. You can hope to see a lot of action, especially in the summers near the water bodies. You can expect a lot of action to happen. Okay. Okay, Hari Prasad, so do you get to access the same areas like other tourists, or do you have special permission? No, it doesn't matter whether I'm a celebrity or what I am. So the park rules are the same for me as well. So I do not take any special privileges. I do not get any special privileges. I also go in the same tourist area as what all of you go. So all the various wildlife photography tours, what I conduct, so that is again in the same tourist area along with your vehicle. So you will just see me in the tourist area itself, like in just another gypsy, another photographer, that's all. Okay, so I do not get any kind of special privileges or permissions to go in the core area or wherever as you think to shoot, to do my wildlife photography. That never happens. Okay. So which parks are good in Karnataka other than Bandipur and Kabini? That's a good one, Dilip. So if you ask me, I think obviously Kabini is the number one. Next comes Bandipur. But then even Bhadra Tiger Reserve also is equally good, especially from the boat safari. Post December, Jan, Bhadra Tiger Reserve also is equally good. But rest of the parks, it's little on and off. And Jungle Lodges is the place to be in Karnataka if you want to get good jeep safaris, jeep safaris. Okay. And yes, Vinay, I have been to Umred Karandla. Even before it was launched, I had gone there just for a recce with my friend. Again, a lot of these parks are still good. When it comes to wildlife photography, like the ones what I mentioned, so these are some of the high profile parks and a better one with respect to habitat and photography opportunities. And Sayantan, if you can afford, go for a full day. I mean, nothing better than a full day safari. But please do find out from Ranthambore if the full day safaris have resumed. Because the last I heard, the full day safaris were called off in Ranthambore. Okay. Nikhil, coming to your point, that is the next one. So we just talked about wildlife destination for tigers. Let's move on. Now, when it comes to leopard, obviously it has to be Kabini, the number one place in India for amazing leopard sightings and photography. Of course, I will not leave out to mention about Jalana. Probably that is something I need to update my slide, because in the recent past, even Jalana has been absolutely fantastic. So it's in Jaipur. So Jalana also you can go for leopard sighting. So if you are more focused on leopard photography, Kabini or Jalana is basically the best one. Okay. And when it comes to elephants, obviously my favorite destination is either Dikala, which is Corbett Tiger Reserve, or Kaziranga. And as I said, the season, if you want to go for Corbett, is April, May, June. Okay, so this is the best time to photograph the elephants in its habitat, the huge grassland, the open grasslands with the backwaters. So you can get some amazing images in Dikala. And this particular image of the elephant having sand bath or the mud bath. So this was shot from a Samsung phone actually. So I was doing a project for Samsung. I think it was the S7, I believe. I don't remember the model, but this was photographed from a cell phone. So that is where like equipment is just a tool. If you know photography, if you understand photography and composition, you should be able to create magical images from any equipment. Okay. So that's, oops. Hey, what did I do? Oops, I pressed something. Okay, yeah. I think I saved it to cloud or something. Let's go back to, yeah. And also now when it comes to elephants, the other amazing location is Kaziranga. And again, starting yesterday, Kaziranga also has opened up, but I'm yet to get the sighting information from Kaziranga, how it is. But generally around this time, overall from now till March, April is an amazing season for Kaziranga, not only for wildlife, not only for elephants, but even general wildlife as well. So Kaziranga is one destination you should keep in mind. And also let me tell you another important thing about Kaziranga, or the best part about Kaziranga, is you don't have to book your safari permits in advance. Unlike all the other tiger reserves, you will have to book it at least 2 months, 3 months in advance. I mean, like now, if you try to go to Bandhavgarh or like even Kana or Tadoba, Ranthambore, any of these places, you will not get the permits. The permits are sold out. You will not get it. Okay, but whereas Kaziranga, you go land up in Kaziranga, then go to the counter and it's current ticket. Okay, so depending on which zone you want to go, just walk into that counter and say like Eastern Zone, Central Zone, Western Zone. You take the permit and you just drive in. Of course, when I say you drive in your gypsy. And also the cost is extremely less. Okay, from a commercial point of view, if I have to tell you, like we do safaris in Bandhavgarh, Ranthambore, all the other places. So the average cost of safari varies from anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 rupees. Okay, I'm talking about when you book through an agent or through the resort. So the cost which comes to you is in the range of 7,000, 6,500 to even 10,000 rupees across these various national parks. But the most expensive safari, which is the central zone in Kaziranga, you will get it under 3,000 rupees. Okay, a fully paid gypsy. It's around 2,600 or 2,700 if I'm right. Okay, so that is the cost, and also the timing over there is very long. Right from morning 7 till 12:30 is the safari in the morning. Again, winter and summer it varies. You will have to find out, but that is where for me personally, Kaziranga I think is one of the best places for general wildlife photography, learning wildlife photography. That is where a lot of my personal like one-on-one tours, I prefer to go to Kaziranga because of the opportunity available to teach as well as shoot. And of course, the cost also is quite less compared to any of the parks. Okay. So around Tamil Nadu, Umesh, not much. The Vedantangal bird sanctuary is there. Outside of that, nothing much. Kabini probably is the closest. Okay, then, and yes, that's right, Siddhant. In all these various national parks, getting a good guide and a driver, the combination is the most important to make amazing images. You may stay at a 7-star property, but if you don't get good condition gypsy and not a good driver, then your wildlife photography will be limited. Okay, so that's actually a very important point. And also Hari Prasad, yes, at least 6 to 8 safaris is what I would recommend in any of these national parks to get good opportunities to make excellent images. 6 to 8 is something which I would recommend. So sanctuary near Delhi, Corbett, Ranthambore, all these things are drivable distance from Delhi. So you can explore some of those things. And how to find a good driver? Get onto Facebook, get onto all these various Facebook groups. A lot of driver guides are part of those groups and they keep posting regular sightings, everything, and they keep sharing their number where you can contact them. Okay, so that is the best way to get in touch with them. So search for Ranthambore, Bandhavgarh, Kana, Tadoba, all these Facebook groups you search on Facebook, go join that group and you will see all these guides, naturalists, drivers, very active in these groups. So they are the ones you need to contact. Okay. Cool. I'm catching up with all the questions, trying to answer maximum of them which you're asking, so that like you get all the information you want for wildlife photography. Now, moving on from elephants, the other one is the rhinoceros, Kaziranga, and even somebody asked about Manas. Manas also is a great place, Soumitra, but unfortunately the habitat is so thick, it's difficult to find good wildlife in Manas. So in Manas, there is this Buraburi Tower, one particular area where there are a lot of salt pits over there, and evenings you get a lot of animals, gaur, spotted deer, samba deer, elephants, then even rhinos. So a lot of them come congregate over there at one place in the evening in harmony, all of them just feeding over there at the salt pits. So that is the Buraburi Tower in Manas. Outside of that, general wildlife in Manas finding is a little challenging. Okay. And yes, Lakshmikant, a lot of these parks, including like Kana, then Tadoba, Pench, a lot of these parks actually do provide night safaris. So I have done night safaris in Pench. Pench is, yeah, Pench I think I have done. Kana I have done, yeah. Pench and Kana night safaris they allow officially. So you can explore those options as well. Okay. So in this case, both are in focus because the focusing plane is the same. So you focus on the rhino, the kingfisher also comes in sharp focus because it's in the same focusing plane. Okay. So after the rhinos is the term of the blackbucks, and nothing better than Velavadar. So Velavadar again is a favorite destination of mine when we talk about hyenas outside of spotted, outside of blackbucks. Is excellent for nilgais, then even hyenas. Okay, and February is the best time. So Jan-Feb is the best season to visit Velavadar. So make a note of that. And all these jumping sequences you get only in the morning. So if you again understand the animal behavioral aspect, so these kind of jumps which the blackbucks they do it only in the morning. And in so many of my visits to Velavadar, evenings I have never seen them jump. Evenings they just laze around. Morning is when they're really active and they jump like this. Okay. MK7, yes, Gir National Park also is good for the Asiatic lions. I've been there quite a few times, but I don't know, somehow I don't feel like going back to that place again, but the forest is very beautiful. Swami, yes, a lot of resorts, they do provide safaris because they do the booking for you. So outside Karnataka, like any of the resorts you contact and then tell them you need safaris. So they organize the safaris. You have to give your ID proof, everything, and they book it on your behalf. So that is where I was mentioning about the cost, right, from 6,500 to 10,000, depending on how you book it across the national parks. Okay, and my other favorite area, which is bird photography. So when we talk about bird photography, nothing better than Bharatpur. And again, the season starts in December. So December, Jan, Feb. So these 3 months are the best when it comes to bird photography at Bharatpur. Again, make a note, in the month of December, I'm doing my tour over there. So I think around December 15th or December 20th onwards is when I'll be announcing my advanced bird photography tour at Bharatpur. And you can plan your stay in Bharatpur. Like again, Bharatpur is another park where the cost is very, very less. So the entry fee is around 100 rupees or something for the entire day. You can shoot on foot, so you can walk the whole park on foot, or you can just rent a bicycle at the entrance and you can just cycle around the whole park, or there are cycle rickshaws available. So generally we take the cycle rickshaw and go into the park. For the entire day, I think it's around 2,000 rupees or something like that, or even 2,500, 2,800. I have to find out the latest cost of that, but it's again very, very nominal. And there is the tourism department hotel right inside the park. So you're welcome to stay there, or even when you're doing a full day in the park, so you can go there for your lunch. Generally, in our case, what we do is like the hotel, they basically supply food inside for us. So there's a center point. In the afternoon, we catch up over there, and from the hotel, fresh hot food comes in packed, and we have it at the central point where there's a canteen and a temple. Shashwat, what will be the cost? So as I said, for Bharatpur, So stay will be anywhere upwards of 1,000 rupees per night, depending on the budget, hotel or whatever. So average around 4,000 rupees per night you can consider double occupancy. So 4,000 per room. So entry ticket, as I said, is around 100 rupees. And beyond that, for the entry, as I said, like if you rent your own cycle, it will be less. You hire a cycle rickshaw, it's in the range of 2,000 rupees. So overall, from a cost point of view, and for wildlife photography and learning, I think Bharatpur for me is one of the best. So Bharatpur, Kaziranga, these two are my favorite destinations for doing my workshops because of the abundant opportunity to learn and shoot. And Shashwat, yes, one-on-one with me. So we'll take it up separately. Please send an email to me directly, separately, and whatever one-on-one cost, the learnings, the whole package, we'll be able to email it to you. Okay, Sumit, the Corbett Dikala workshop, it will be in the month of April, May. Okay, and the other one is Little Run of Kutch. So LRK again, December, January, February is the best time for bird photography. So you got a lot of desert species and also a lot of water bodies like birds, shorebirds you get in Little Run of Kutch. There also the cost is quite nominal, and you can shoot the entire day because it's not, except for the wild as sanctuary, rest of the places we go is just outside of the sanctuary, around villages, water bodies. So there are no time restrictions. You can actually go and shoot the full day if you want. Okay. And okay, Piyush, generally again, the 3 full day in Bharatpur will be very productive. Okay, so 3 full days. The day you go, that half day, the last day you go out half day. So 3 full days and half of day on either side for Bharatpur, I think will be the best. And the last one for bird photography, I don't know how many of you are aware, but Goa is one of the best destinations for bird photography. So it's considered as one of the top rated birding destinations in India. I know Goa is famous for the beach and the parties, but equally well known in the wildlife birding community. And where do we go in Goa? So Nature's Nest. So you can just look up Nature's Nest. It belongs to a good friend of mine, Pankaj Lad. He himself is an excellent naturalist, and even they do regular birding as well as night herping tours they do as a part of their package. So you can get in touch with Pankaj Lad of Nature's Nest for all the birding in Goa or southern part of Goa. Okay, then guide at LRK, yes, the hotels itself where you stay, they provide you the guides, jeeps, gypsies, all that is taken care as a part of the package. Okay. So spot for Indian skippers, Chambal, I think is the best place if you ask me. So Nature Nest, as I said, just get onto Nature's Nest. That's right, Santosh, Nature Nest. Just search for Nature Nest Goa, Google, you should be able to get it. And as I said, Pankaj Lad is the owner of that and the naturalist over there, everything. Amazing guy. So you can directly contact him to the website. Okay, and moving on. Yes, now comes one of my other favorite points when we talk about shooting techniques. Like, so since it's wildlife photography, like we do from the gypsy, from the safari vehicle, so the overall options is quite limited. Okay, so that is why, as I said, I'll be showing you a lot of accessories, what I use as a part of my photography. Now, before that, let's go one step forward and show you the way I shoot. Now, majority of these wildlife parks where I go, a lot of them allow you to remove the center seat. Of course, latest there have been rules and guidelines where if there are more than 2 people, you cannot remove the center seat. Okay, so you have to find out from your park authorities, from the resorts, what is allowed, what is not. But a lot of these places, they do allow you to remove the center seat in the gypsy. So as you can see, so we remove the center seat in the gypsy, of course, during my personal private tours or even one-on-one guided tours. So I remove the center seat and I lay all the equipment down there. So this is a very old image. I still use it. So here, as you can see, like I keep the tripod within the Jeep, like for stable shooting, and then all the equipment are spread across over there and down like a bedding is put. So especially in full day safari, sometimes we just sleep within the vehicle itself. And this is very, very comfortable to shoot. And also another very important tip I want to give you, when you're shooting in this kind of a scenario situation, so I always wear slippers and go. Okay, so these are small things which actually makes a huge difference for your photography. So in these situations, what I do is like I remove the slipper, keep it in the corner, because like barefoot gives you a lot of flexibility to move within the vehicle and shoot. Okay, otherwise with the shoes, what happens, as you can see, like this is actually very minimal what you see. Like in reality, a lot of things, binoculars, my phone charger, cables are lying around, then monopod, then this spanning pod, then I'll show you like a couple of bean bags. A lot of things are lying on the ground over there within the Gypsy. And when you're wearing your shoes, like your shoes may get stuck in between, the shoelace will get tangled here and there. So a lot of those issues happen when you're wearing a shoe. So that is where barefoot shooting is the best in these scenarios. So here, as you can see, like we remove it and we can go completely at eye level. So one technique I've shown you here is using the tripod, where if you have to do shoots, video shoots also you can do. So again, you get eye level. So here, if you see, like there's a little bit of gap between the lowest portion in the Gypsy and the lens. So there is this much of gap. And when we talk about eye level shooting, that actually matters a lot. So you still have to get it down. So that is where there are other techniques. So again, if you go down here, this is again another kind of accessory what I use. So the Manfrotto Super Clamp. So I have all those things lying here. I'll be showing it to you. Like I'll show a demo and how I use it. So I'll showcase all those things for you in a few moments. So this is the Super Clamp, and then even the fluid on top of that. So this works very well in these scenarios where there is a bar and you can just put the clamp onto the bar of the vehicle, and it is extremely stable. Even a 600 mm, this is my 800 mm, so it can easily hold that. Again, for video shoots also, it's quite flexible. Okay. So this is again a different angle of the same clamp with, of course, the lion sleeping there. I think this was Tanzania, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, this was in Tanzania. Okay, and another jugaad what I do when situations like this where you are in a vehicle which doesn't give you much facilities. So this is the jugaad where just your handkerchief. Okay, so just tie the handkerchief to any of the bar, and the long lenses will have the tripod collar. Just reverse the tripod collar onto the top. Just hang it over there, it will stand. So that way you don't have to lift the equipment. Okay, so this was in Kerala. So I was doing a book for the Kerala tourism department long time back in Wayanad, and they gave me a forest department vehicle. So no Gypsy or no fancy facilities, nothing like that. So a forest department vehicle, and I just had to sit in the front, go around and shoot. So that is where, like, since I had to shoot with the 800 mm and the 400, so I tied that handkerchief over there, and believe me, it is pretty strong. The handkerchief, it can hold even the 800 mm lens. It's quite strong and very flexible to shoot. Once you hang it over there like a swing, then when you're shooting, even panning easily, you'll be able to do it. And in fact, long time back in one of my Kabini workshops, I gave this idea, and one of the lady photographers, I asked her to get a dupatta because like she was finding it difficult to hold a long lens. So I asked her to get the dupatta, and then I tied the dupatta like to the bars of the vehicle in Kabini, and all the future safaris at ease she was able to shoot, because just tie the dupatta 2 rounds and then just insert your lens like this. So handheld, easily you can do. You're not actually lifting the equipment, you're just supporting it. Okay, so these are all the different shooting techniques which you have to like come up with, like in an innovative way, depending on the vehicles, depending on the options available within the vehicle. So I keep developing these techniques on the fly when I have to shoot. Okay, so shooting techniques, accessories. So this is what I just wanted to show you. So these are all the different accessories what I use for my wildlife photography. So let me stop sharing and then show you things over here. Okay, so this is good. We have a full view of just me. Now to start with, hold on. Now, first and foremost, okay, so the beanbag is again one of the very important things. Okay, focusing the camera is there. Okay, now beanbag is one of the most important accessories for your wildlife photography. So you need to like put it. So let me just show you a few demo. Okay, so let me just do a wide angle of this whole thing. Okay, so I believe still the audio, everything is coming through fine. And you can see the backdrop as well, the dirty backdrop. Now, yeah, so here if you see now the beanbag, right? So one of the ways what I shoot is I use the beanbag, and then this is basically, I hope again the camera focuses. So this one is a panning plate. So this is something a friend of mine in here, Bangalore, like he manufactures it, but this is the one I got it from BH Photo Video from US. Okay, so you just like put the equipment here and then place it on the beanbag, and then easily you can shoot it. So of course the setup, that is a different one. So yeah, I think you can see the video online in my YouTube channel. I have put it about how to use the panning pot. So this is one of the important accessories which you need to get, like, and also once you put it along with the lens, right, with the lens plate in the clamp it goes, you can just lift and take it around wherever you want and you can use this. So this one is quite important. Okay, so the bean bag and then the panning pot is one of the things what I use. Okay. Okay, so moving on, it's chopped off. Okay, so a little bit of composition things. Now the other one. So this is basically a fluid head. So this is a Schachtler FSB8 fluid head, the one which I have been using for almost close to 8 years. Now this again is an amazing one. This is quite expensive. It is more than $1 lakh. So in India, if you have to purchase, it's close to 1,40,000 plus GST, all those. Okay, but this one is extremely stable and very flexible, and this is much better than a ball head. So generally, like at a lower cost, you get this ball head. So of course, this is a National Geographic ball head. So the tripod what I'm using for broadcasting this video, that's again a National Geographic Gitzo tripod. So this is a ball head for that. So ball heads are quite flexible, but especially when it comes to using for long telelens, so this is not recommended because like it may just fall. So that is where instead of the ball head, so I recommend a fluid head. So fluid head are extremely flexible. Even if you just release this, it will just stay. Okay, so let me just show you the setup over here. Let me just switch it off and disconnect. Okay, let me move this chair to the side and get this in. Okay, so let me turn the other way. Okay, cool. So what I'm using here is basically like it's a Manfrotto fluid head. So Manfrotto, okay, let me just show it this way. The camera is there. So this is a Manfrotto fluid head. So if you see the flexibility of its use, right? Okay, so it has two knobs. So this is the side knob. Basically, if I loosen this side knob, it goes up and down. I tighten it, and then a panning knob. So this is for panning. So this is a knob over here. I hope you can see it. Okay, so these are the two knobs. And then of course, like if you want to shoot vertical, so this lens collar knob, you turn it, you can just turn it vertical inside here. So this is extremely useful. And this is okay, low quality fluid head what I'm using. This is again, as I said, the Manfrotto fluid head. So as I said, the main advantage, even if you loosen this, so once the center of gravity is properly set, so some of the other high-end fluid head, it has a little bit of tension knob where if you see like it doesn't fall. So even if I leave it, it just stays there. And then one click, you can just tighten it. So this is how I use it. So this is more for just demo And within the room here, when I'm doing this FB Lives, Insta Live, I use this for the broadcast. For serious work, as I said, I use the Schackler. So this is what I use. Okay, so this again, as I said, is quite heavy, 2 plus 2.5 kgs, but very, very stable. And this is what I would recommend. I mean, not this, little bit high-end fluid head is what I would recommend. Now, when I'm talking about fluid head, the next very important accessory, the new one. So this is again from Gitzo. So recently Gitzo just sent it to me for the review and testing, and this is quite a useful one. So this is again, this is not a normal gimbal head. So Wimberley gimbal head we all have seen, but this is the latest one from Gitzo. So here again, this is a fluid gimbal head, a unique one where again, this, if you see the mount over here, the screw, it goes into any of the tripod. Okay, so this goes into any tripod, put it, and then you can, so it comes with its own lens plate, and then you just loosen these things. So this side one, this is for the vertical movements. Of course, once the equipment is there, then this moves very easily because of the weight which comes in, it moves easily. Okay. And then the side knob, again, when you loosen it and you mount it on a tripod for the panning. Okay. So this is again an extremely useful and very smooth one to use. Of course, it's around 50,000-60,000 rupees if I'm not wrong. But this is the latest one from Gitzo, the Gitzo Fluid Gimbal head, one of its unique type. Okay. And of course, the main final one, again, a very, very important accessory is this very, very simple clamp. This is the super clamp, Manfrotto super clamp, extremely flexible. So what all you will have to do is like use this, you can see it here, just it goes into any of the gypsy bars, gypsy or any vehicle. Okay, it just goes in, sits like this on the bar. And then here the head, if you see this head portion, yes, it's focusing the head now. So if you see the head portion here, so this is where your, where are you? Okay, so you have this fluid head. So this fluid head goes over here. Okay, so and then this gets onto the clamp bar of the vehicle. So any of these ball heads. So if you see here, that's it. So this is a setup. Again, it goes into the bar, your equipment here, you can just use it. So this again, this is just 3,000 or 4,000 rupees. That is all. Cost is not much, but this is one of the extremely useful equipment for your wildlife photography. So go ahead. So the clamp is there. So the clamp, then the panning pod, then again the fluid head, then the bean bag. So all these are accessories, which is very, very important. Now the other important accessory is the tripod. So let me get the lighter one. So again, when we're talking about tripod, so when you're doing your photography, right, especially for wildlife and bird photography, it's very important not to have the center column. So this tripod, if you see here, so this tripod, if you see, there is a center column over here. So the center column will not be of use, especially like if you want to go for very low level photography. So low level photography, you want to spread the legs and go completely flat on the ground. So that one, you cannot do it. So that is where I keep advising for wildlife photography, get a tripod, just the tripod legs where the center column is not there. Okay. And also when you're choosing a tripod, you have to make sure the load bearing capacity of the tripod is at least 3 times the weight of your equipment. So overall weight of your equipment is say around 5 kgs. 5 kgs, then the load bearing capacity has to be at least 15 kgs. So that is something which you have to keep in mind. Any tripod, again, based on the cost, 3 times the weight of the equipment, the tripod should be able to handle. Okay. So, okay, Hari Prasad, regarding the panning pod. So my friend Manjunath, like in fact, I had given one of these things to him, I gave him the idea and he started manufacturing in India. So he can courier it to anywhere in India. So any of you need, just message me and I will share it, or rather like since we have the common chat group for this event, also you have seen that when you buy this course or when you bought this course, it says like till 4th October, whereas the webinar is today 2nd October. That is because further communication tomorrow, day after tomorrow in the common chat group, I'll be sharing some of the information as a follow-up. So the group will be active till the 4th of October. So that is where you see that the course expires on 4th October. So the 100 rupees course what you bought. So there I'll be posting you like email ID and the contact number of Manju, and you can order this Manfrotto, the panning pod from him. It's I think in the range of 13 to 15,000. But if you get it from US to India, it will cost you 30,000 rupees. Or if you are in US or somebody is traveling from US and coming, then the best option is to basically like order it online at BH Photo Video, get it to your friend's house in US and let them get it for you. That will be the cheapest if you ask me. Okay. Alternate option, get it right here in India. Okay. And how can you message me? Yes, as I said, like that group chat will be active for the next 2 days. So any immediate query, whatever you have in the group chat, wildlife photography masterclass, that group chat, you can message me. And after 2 days, that whole thing will just cease to exist. Okay, cool. So let me just put everything back. Okay. And let me just adjust the camera a little. Okay, yeah, this should be fine. Okay, let me just quickly look at some of the questions coming in. Okay. So when you're using Schackler FFV8, what advantages do you have over Wimberley WS200? See, the Wimberley is a G-type lens, okay? And Schackler is one of the world's top quality manufacturers, a German company. And Schackler is mainly known for video, actually, videography, not for stills. But because of the combination what I use for stills and videos, so that is where Schackler, I mean, it's a lifelong investment if you ask me. So for me personally, I would prefer a fluid head compared to a gimbal, because gimbal, what happens, since it doesn't have the fluid mechanism, so when you're trying to pan, so there'll be jerks in your gimbal head. The smoothness will be missing. So the nice smooth flow. Okay, so even in the Schackler, it has multiple tension adjustments, like for the panning if you have to do. So what kind of smoothness you want, both panning as well as vertical movement. So it has multiple adjustments. So that is where it's a major advantage to use that over any other support heads. Okay, so any suggestions for center tripod? See, I would not know of any brand name, I mean like specific model name immediately, but Gitso and Manfrotto, they both belong to the same company, which is Gitso. So Gitso, Manfrotto, so, or even for that matter, Vanguard, Benro. So there are a lot of these well-known brands, but my personal choice recommendation, generally I go with Gitso, or a little bit lower budget, then it has to be the Manfrotto head, okay, or the Manfrotto tripod legs. Tamron 7180 non-IS, I have no idea about it, Ravi Kumar. Main thing is, as I said, check the MTF chart of it, and then you will come to know about the quality of the glass element of the lens. Okay, cool. So again, let me go back to sharing, because now I have to figure out like what are the next set of topics which are left. And we are now more than 1 hour into it. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see, these are some of the accessories what I use as a part of my wildlife photography. Yeah, even Vanguard is there, Rakesh. That's right. So even Vanguard also, it's a very good brand for your tripod. Okay. Next one. Let's go. Okay. Now, best camera settings. Now, this is where I will have to use my. Put it on. Okay, so we'll be moving on to the best camera settings for wildlife photography. So what I'll be doing is like I've connected my camera to again Zoom, and I'll be able to directly show what the camera is seeing, the settings. So I'll be talking, you'll be able to hear me. You'll not be able to see me because the sharing of the video will be of the camera view. So I'll be doing that. But before we move on, okay, so I want to take a very small break here and let you know of some amazing things which are currently going on. Okay, so let me stop this share and yeah, oops, I'm not sharing this, sorry. So this is, as I said, like the chat window I told you about, right? So this is going to be active for some more time. Not able to join due to network issue, not able to join due to some personal work, no problem. So this is where this chat window will be available for the next 2 days. You can chat with me, talk to me here. Now, one thing as a part of this wildlife week, which I want to convey to you is basically like if you go on to my courses, so all of you have my app installed. So if you go into my courses, so the exclusive add-on, so the Nikon bundle, Canon bundle, Sony bundle, and the exclusive add-on, or just the Nikon, Canon, Sony bundle. So this entire week, so I have a very special discount, a 25% off for the wildlife week. In fact, like when I talk about composition, I'll tell you like how exactly my course is going to help you to become a better photographer, the various features, benefits of it. A lot of those things I'll be able to talk to you on the fly. But if you ask me, the one what I would recommend is the all courses, the exclusive add-on. Okay, all courses plus exclusive add-on, which is available for 3 years. So if you look at the cost of it, so just the any of the bundle plus exclusive add-on if you buy. Okay, so that cost actually you pay it here, similar one, but you actually get access for 3 years. The other ones are for access of 1 year. So whereas here, it's just like the 14,800 inclusive of GST, what you pay is for a period of 3 years, which means like if you are someone who's really, really interested to like excel in photography, then I can be your mentor for the next 3 years. So as they say, if you want to be an awesome photographer, you need to have an awesome mentor who can help you, guide you every step. And that is where I come in and play a major role for all of you. So this is something I would highly recommend. Go for the all courses plus exclusive add-on and you get access to our closed community. So the Facebook closed community for the last couple of days, it was having some issues. It is not working well, but still I should be able to go within the media, in the albums. So this is where we have the image review. So people post the images, I review. And I review in an innovative way where I do a video recording of that. So I use Loom to record the entire video and convey to them what the feedback is, what improvement needs to be done. So all these are the images which people would have put. And if you see here, I click on this. This is the kind of feedback I give them. So I do a complete video recording of that. The very first one you said like there was no other alternate but to give the movement. So I do a complete video recording of every image and I give the feedback. So that is one major feature of the all courses or the exclusive add-on. So then even we have the portfolio session where if you again have to grow your Instagram account, I help you shortlist the images and then you can basically like publish it. I say yes or no. So those feedback I give. And apart from that, we have monthly webinars where I again interact with you on a Zoom call like this. And then even shortlisted images I have tied up with Asian Photography Magazine and your images will get published in the magazine. Like, so we have an SSP student showcase. So these are a lot of other benefits are there if you sign up for the exclusive add-on. So that is something which is available. And how can you put your photos for me to review? So this is the place. So if you go into this, people here, as you can see, upload the images. I go review, give the feedback. And also portfolio is there where we create portfolios where I help them create portfolio, as I said. And also in the past also we had monthly competition. So where I teach you what it takes to win competition. So what kind of images you need to submit. And also the other thing is like whenever anywhere competitions are there, so all my students, they send me images and I shortlist the images for them. And in fact, the 14-year-old kid who was part of my one-on-one workshop, so I helped him shortlist the images which we shot in Ranthambore, and it seems like he has won a major award, which he will let me know next week. Okay, so these are all some of the very interesting facts when you sign up for my online photography course. So as I said, the all courses is what I would recommend, but still you can explore any of the bundle plus the exclusive add-on, all of them at 25% discount, whereas the all courses plus exclusive add-on has a 60% discount and the validity for that is 3 years. Okay. And yes, so Pratibha, that's a very valid point. So my courses has got nothing to do with wildlife photography. Okay, so the concepts what you learn here as a part of all these courses are general concepts of photography, which you can apply to any genre. Nothing to do with wildlife. Wildlife photography, I just have only one course related to wildlife photography and one course related to bird photography. The rest, everything what you learn here is general concepts of photography. Okay, nothing specific to wildlife. So if you're someone who wants to improve, then please do explore this option. As I said, for the next 1 week, we have this huge discount sale going on. So do explore it through the app in the store. And also another major advantage, which I missed to convey to you. So when you subscribe through the app, so you even get the offline viewing feature. So if you are in the area where there is no network, in the network, when you're in the network, you can download the courses on your phone through the app itself. And in an offline mode, you can watch any of those videos. So when you're in flight mode, or you're in the forest where there's no network, you can still watch my courses. And another major advantage is like if you sign up through the app, then you get free access to the same course on the website also. So if you want to watch the course on a larger monitor, on the browser, on the computer, then free access on my website for the same set of course, you will get it. Okay. So these are all some amazing features what you have when you sign up for my online photography course. Nothing, you can subscribe to it. Hari Prasad, you can subscribe to it anytime. So all these courses, the moment you sign up, like you will have full access, and from day one, you can start watching the course. So there's no batch or any announcement. You can sign up on an immediate basis. Okay. Will there be any physical one-on-one sessions? So Gautam, there will not be any physical one-on-one. So the way this chat session you have for this masterclass, right? Same way like we have chat sessions for the exclusive add-on and all courses. So once you sign up, so you will be put into the common chat group and you will have direct access to me. Any queries you have on photography, you can ask me and you can get it resolved. Okay, so a lot of those benefits are there. Now, Bimal, what is the minimal lens, focal length required for wildlife photography? What is the minimal focal distance? So, Bimal, if you ask me, I think at least a 250 mm or a 300 mm is the least which you need for wildlife photography. Anything above 300 mm will be a decent one when it comes to wildlife photography. Okay, cool. All right, so let's continue. So this is a little bit of my sales and marketing pitch, what I wanted to let you know as a part of the Wildlife Week. Okay, so let's move on to the main topic now. And I just want to make sure I've not missed any queries which have been coming in. And yeah, anything related to the online course, everything, please do get in touch with Akib. He will be able to help you. And so Akib is right here. So he is working with me. And any queries, you can directly post it in the app itself. So under your own, you don't even have to be part of any of the group. So in the app, directly you send a message, it will come to me, either me or Akib, we will get back to you. So any query, even after the session and after that master wildlife photography master class, so the chat also, if it closes, still directly you will be able to get in touch with me through the chat option of my photography app. Okay. So don't turn off the notification, as I'll keep sharing even photography related tips, everything as a part of the app. Let's move on. Now, best camera setting. So for this, let me stop sharing this. Okay. And directly share the other video. So I think the audio will be fine. Okay. So I'm going to switch over now to the setup over here. And Yeah, so I'll switch over the setup and you will not be able to see me. It is just my audio, but I'll be explaining to you like how exactly I go around in wildlife photography, adjusting my camera to get the best camera settings. Okay, so let me switch over the video. Okay, amazing. Hello. My voice still coming through. Hello. Yeah. So guys, just give me a thumbs up. I think my voice is still coming through, right? It's just, okay, cool. Thank you for that. Now, let me just take some water. Of course, this is this is my main shelf here where all my equipment, everything is there. Okay. So for helping you understand the best camera setting, so I'll be using this particular window and I'll be taking you through the sessions, taking you through the various settings. Now, for wildlife photography, when we talk about the exposure triangle parameter, okay, so down you see like I have those three parameters like shutter speed, aperture, and the ISO. So I'm currently using the Sony 200-600, which is 5.6 to 6.3. So I'm at 500, I'm at 200 mm now. Since I'm at 200 mm, the aperture is at 5.6, but the moment I zoom in, you see the aperture becomes 6.3. Okay, so that is how the zoom lens actually works, the aperture. So let me just go back to 200 for now. Okay, now for my wildlife photography, generally what I do, okay, let me move to aperture priority now. Generally what I do is I shoot in aperture priority mode. Okay, so for all my wildlife shoots, I switch over to aperture priority, and of course, after this, the advanced setting also I'll be able to share with you. Now, so I move to aperture priority, and the first thing what I do is I keep my aperture. You see that f8, f11. So I turn and keep the aperture to the lowest f number supported by the lens. So that is the first setting what I do. Okay, so aperture priority I move and keep it to the lowest f number. Now, once I do that, now depending on what I'm shooting, so for example, in front of me, what you see is just this eagle, if you see. Okay, so all these subjects over there are totally static subjects. Now, these static subjects, if I have to shoot, even in real life scenario, if it's a tiger sitting there, not making much movement, okay, so in those situations, depending on the low light, I honestly don't need such a high shutter speed, or rather like the shutter speed of 1/160, what you're saying, I don't need such high shutter speed. What really matters is your shooting technique. So as long as you are using all those accessories, what I have conveyed with respect to the bean bag, then the tripod, the panning plate on top of that. And yeah, in fact, somebody asked me about monopod. Monopod also is a great option. I think that is something I missed to include. I will include that in the next presentation. But yes, any of those accessories where you have good stability, then you don't have to worry about shutter speed. Now, if I had to show you for this particular image itself, okay, so I will just reduce the ISO. I don't need such high ISO. Oops, reduce it. And for ISO 400, I'm getting a shutter speed of 1/25 of a second. And as I said, I'm shooting on a tripod here. Let me just get the focus there and let me just do a click. Okay, and then when we play back the image, and hopefully when we zoom in, you can see like the image is quite sharp. Even at 1/25 of a second, you don't need very high shutter speed. So when a tiger is sitting over there, if you know again the behavioral aspect of a tiger, it will not make sudden movement. So it will just shake its head once, it will make eye contact with you, and then again turn at the other side. So when it is making eye contact with you or it's not shaking its head, 1/25 or 1/25, 1/25 of a second is quite a decent shutter speed to get sharp images. Okay, so if again have to zoom in, there you go. It is still pretty sharp at such slow shutter speed because of the stability. So general misconception. Now, one of the things what people do, so if I just have to again come back. Okay, now one of the key things what generally people, the mistake what they do is just because the lighting condition is very low, or rather, when the lighting situation is very low, a misconception is people tend to just increase the ISO because the light is low and you want to get a faster shutter speed. But that is the wrong thing to do. So if the subject is not moving, or if it is just shaking itself like this little bit here and there, then your shooting technique has to be really good, where when the subject turns, it's going to stay there for 1 or 2 seconds, and you're shooting at 1/25th of a second, less than 1 second. And it's going to stay still for at least a second or two, and that is your window. Okay, so these are the small things which you have to keep in mind when you're trying to use ISO. So most importantly, do not increase the ISO because the light is low. Main thing is watch out what is happening in your scene. Is there any fast movement happening or no? Of course, if there is good amount of fast moving happening, subject is walking or may run, then I agree, yes, you will have to increase the ISO, no other option. Okay. So handhold technique also to avoid camera shake, you have to basically like hold very still, and at the time of shooting, you have to hold your breath. So that is again a very important shooting technique when it comes to handheld photography. Okay, now let me switch back to the camera setting. Okay, so that is the first setting where I play with my ISO, and then aperture is constant. I'm shooting in aperture priority. Aperture is constant depending on what is happening in the scene. I basically choose an ISO and check the shutter speed. Now, another important funda which you have to remember here is like the reason why I shoot in aperture priority is I can even control the shutter speed in aperture priority. Okay. So if you see, the very important technique is you see the ISO which is currently at 400 and the shutter speed is 1/20. Now, the way it works is basically like when you double your ISO, your shutter speed doubles, which means from ISO 400, of course, for the same composition, which is very important. Now from ISO 400, if I go to ISO 800, from 1/20, the shutter speed will become 1/40. Look at that. Okay. And from 800, again, if I double the ISO to 1600, 1/40 will become 1/80. So from 800, I go to 1600, it becomes 1/80. So this is how you need to calculate it. This is the kind of technique I use for my wildlife photography when I'm shooting in aperture priority, where for a specific ISO, I check the shutter speed and always keep the F number to the lowest F number and double your ISO to double your shutter speed. This works absolutely well. So these are the very fundamentals of exposure triangle parameters, what I use. Now, moving on, the other camera related setting which I use is basically the white balance. Now, white balance, I choose it based on what is actually happening in the scene. Now here, if you see still, I think the white balance, it's a more warm color because of the kind of lighting I'm using here indoors. Okay. Oh, and also just for fun, let me just show you something. No laughing. This was a photograph of me and my wife when we went for our honeymoon in Switzerland. So I'm going to show you, since it's there here, let me show it to you. No laughing, okay? So that's me 20 years back with my wife.